But the reason I like to use this tool, and the reason why I said it's quite effective, is that you only need to draw the outline of your shape and then use the direct selection tool, which is the second tool in the toolbar. Just select one of the anchor points in the center part, press the delete option, and then delete again will delete that whole inside path. So it's not a compound path anymore, it's just an individual path on the outside. So we created a filled shape very quickly. And then one additional thing you need to do is to simplify this path. But for this, make sure that you make a selection of the whole shape, or one easy technique to make sure that all the anchor points are selected is to switch to the path selection tool, click on the object, and then switch to the direct selection tool. So as you can see now, all of the anchor points are selected. So with this, I can tap on this option here, which is the simplify path. If I just tap on that, it will reduce the amount of anchor points. And if you want, you can tap it a couple of times until it's going to get to a point that it can't further simplify it anymore. Now, at this point, of course, you can still go in and manually refine any of these details, but on the iPad, this is not something that I prefer to do. It's just a little bit too fiddly. I prefer to do that on the desktop. So at this point, I would just move on to the next shape, and let's just draw quickly this part of the mustache. Again, I'm just trying to feel what works best here, something like that. Select the whole shape, then use the direct selection tool, select one of those inside parts, delete twice, and again, simplify, and that looks quite good. Now let's just do one more shape. I'm going to draw the beard. And you can see why I like this tool, because I feel like I can work in a very organic way. I can then go back quickly and simplify things. And one other thing that I sometimes use is the eraser tool. So if I just select the eraser tool, I can very quickly refine some edges that I didn't like. So like that detail there, I can just erase it like that. And let's just take a look at this. Click away. So we very quickly created these shapes. And maybe one more important thing that I wanted to show you is how to create clipping masks on the iPad, because it's slightly different. So we don't have the draw inside mode. That makes it quite convenient to create them on the desktop. Here, what you need to do is to have two shapes to begin with. So I'm just going to draw another shape quickly, maybe with a different color. So let's just say I want to have something like this inside the beard. So I will just close this off and then do the same technique as before, delete. This is a shape I would like to have showing inside that beard outline or object that I created. First, I have to make sure that the beard is selected, and then using this icon here, which is called stacking order, with this I can very quickly drag it up or below the existing shapes. Especially when you have a lot of objects, this is going to make things much easier. So you can quickly access the stacking order, which of course, by the way, you can also access from the layers panel. So you can still drag things up and down here if you want to. But now that we have these two shapes, I can just select both of them together. And while they are selected, we have to tap on this option here on the right and choose Make Clipping Mask. And of course, the object on top is going to be turned into the mask. And unfortunately, you will have to reapply the color on it because by default it's removed. So we have to go and select that shape, and then we can apply our fill color on it. And now we have our clipping group created for us. So what that means is that if we continue to draw inside this group, everything that we draw is going to end up being masked out automatically. So let's just test this out with a different color. I'm just going to deselect these, change my color to this, and then use the blob brush tool again, and let's draw another shape like that, and then delete the inner parts, And all I have to do is to drop it inside this clipping group here in the layers panel. So I have to start dragging this and drop it in there. It doesn't matter where it goes. The clipping path will be activated anyway. But of course, if I want to have these two overlapping, and let's just say I want this teal or turquoise color to be below the pink one, I can just drag it all the way underneath there. And I can still move it around and find the best place for it. So although working on the iPad can be faster and more effective, in some cases, like when it comes to working with clipping masks, I find it easier to work on the desktop, thanks to the Draw Inside mode. And finally, there is one more important thing to remember when you work on the iPad, that you don't necessarily have to save your work because it happens automatically as long as you are connected to the internet. So you can just tap here on the document name on the top and it should tell you when it was saved last time. So if it's not saved already, you can just tap on Save Now, but it seems like it's automatically saved. And I can also see a little green tick on the bottom right corner of the thumbnail, which means that it's up to date and it's stored in the cloud. And that means if I switch back to the desktop where I am at the moment, I can see it showing up right here with the shapes that we created on the iPad. And I can check that we have definitely that clipping group that we created, and we can zoom closer as well. Yeah, just like I said, everything is there, so I can just continue working here. And what I like to do whenever I want to involve the iPad in a project is that I prefer to start drawing there quickly the shapes that I need and then do all the refinements and texturing and all the rest of the workflow on the desktop. I very rarely go back and forth, but that's an advantage of cloud documents, that there is the option to do that if you want to. So now that you've seen this, it's completely up to you whether you want to continue using the iPad for most of the project or whether you prefer to follow along with me using the desktop version.